Hey, Crystal Maiden here. For my favorite in the Advance series, Sonic Advance 2. So, let me explain this. I got a cartridge that doesn't actually save your progress. Like, every time I turn the cartridge off, all of my progress is gone. As a result, at the start of this LP, you could see me input the player data. And I used to think, okay, maybe I'm doing something wrong, maybe I'm not inputting the correct thing. But no. So that's kind of disappointing. I have a cartridge that doesn't actually save. But this is a game that's so fun that I don't mind replaying all of it every time I play it. I love the emphasis on speed that this game has. And I especially love how the level design is perfectly made to accommodate it. Sonic has this new thing where not only does he run a lot faster and accelerate from a standstill a lot faster, but the level design is perfectly suited to accommodate him constantly running fast. And when you run fast for long enough, you go into a boost mode where there's this cool after image that really makes you feel like you're moving quickly. And I've heard that running through enemies with the after image will damage the enemies. And there's also a new trick system introduced where you press, I think it's the L button in Advance 2 and R in Advance 3 for some reason. But you press one of the shoulder buttons and you do a trick. You can do an up trick, which is really useful. And you can do a right trick where you keep the momentum going. Although it's really annoying how you briefly stop in midair for a second or two after doing a trick. So even though the forward trick is supposed to keep the sense of momentum going, it really doesn't because you just briefly stop and it kind of takes you out of it. I'm glad they fixed that in Rush. And you can also do a down trick, which is really useless. All it does is send you downwards. And you can do a backwards trick where you go back. I'm not sure why you'd ever want to do that. A lot of people complain about how this game is just hold right to win. And I don't really agree with that because at some point you get to a point where you can't just hold right to win. Like there's one part in Music Plant that just forces you to go left. And it's not like you could take an alternate route to stop that. There is still platforming in this game. But it's not like there's a massive emphasis on platforming or anything. Which is good because with the kind of physics that you have, I think Sonic is a little too slippery to be forced to do precise platforming and have it turned out well. Like, I especially noticed that at the beginning of Advance 3. Like, he moves too fast in the air. And another thing is that they changed the physics for this game so that if you roll into a ball, you don't always go faster. Like, it's better to not roll into a ball in this game. Which feels kind of sacrilegious as most Sonic games up to this point have been all about how you roll into a ball to move faster. But here, even if you're rolling from the top of a slope, it's not always a good idea to roll into a ball. Which is especially annoying because occasionally you'll have some really cheap enemy placement and rolling to a ball is the only way to prevent yourself from getting hurt by them. For the most part though, the enemy placement isn't cheap. It's only a few specific enemies that are very memorable with specific placement that sucks. What really sucks is the boss fights. And you know, they would be perfectly fine, sort of, if the floor didn't constantly slope. The air dash is mapped to the double tap. So you have to tap right on the control pad really quickly, rapid succession twice in order to do the double tap. And it really sucks how, like I made short work of that boss, but that's because I knew what to do. That's because I knew that you could roll into the boss and jump to deal multiple hits at once. But you're gonna see just how awful these boss fights really are, and it's all because of the fact that it's different physics. You're constantly running all the time. This is the introduction of Cream the Rabbit. I don't think, aside from Advance 3 and Rush, no, she doesn't appear in Rush Adventure. She doesn't really appear that often in the LP series that I'm gonna be doing. But she's a polite girl, and a lot of people find her boring because she's too nice and not quite involved in the action. She's sort of a pacifist. In Sonic Battle, she realizes that it's good to fight to protect your friends. So I'm okay with her for that, although She was kind of annoying in Sonic Battle because she pressured Emerald to not fight, and that got him in trouble because at one point he refused to fight in a dangerous situation. But anyways, a lot of people don't like Cream, but she's very popular in Japan, specifically because she's so bland. So it feels like she's kind of a misaimed attempt because Sonic's more popular in the West, but here they have this character that's all aimed toward the Japanese. I love Hot Shelter. This is, well, is it Hot Shelter? No, I think it's Hot Crater. It goes to show you how similar some of the level names in this franchise are. But I love this level. This is easily my favorite level in the game. I feel like it does a better job being consistently fast-paced than the previous level. I mean, I hate that enemy. I hate how it is long and easily attacks you. But see, I slowed down from ball form. And you still have the odd quirk with Advance 1, where you can't grind on rails unless you hit the very beginning of it. So it's very likely that you'll miss it and not be able to grind. They only fixed that for Advance 3. And once again, you don't move as fast when you're in ball form as you do when you run fast enough and you're getting after image, and you're sort of in a prototype of the boost. Like, it's really cool how this game seems to foreshadow the boost introduction from Rush, because you run fast enough and you sort of boost forwards and you're moving a lot faster. Only it's sort of better than the boost because, while I'm not really sure if you can blast through enemies with it just fine, it doesn't run out until you get stopped by pace breakers like this. I hate that enemy. And you also have the homie attack in this game. I think you had it in Advance 1 as well. Basically, I think you press A multiple times in the air, and that's how you damage the enemies. The annoying thing is that the air dash doesn't deal damage to enemies, even though it started out as a homie attack, but not homed into enemies. So why does the air dash not work as an attack? It would have been so much better. The bosses would have been so much less frustrating if you could just do an air dash at them. Oh, this is the really cheap part. If I hadn't been rolled into a ball there, I probably would have gotten flung straight into that enemy. But for the most part, badnik placing in this game isn't cheap. It's usually just a few really memorable enemies like practically every level has one instance of a really annoying enemy. But even then, the enemies aren't really annoying by themselves, it's just how they're placed. But yeah, a lot of people like to complain about this game for not being enough like the classic Sonic games. But I think Sonic should be fast, you know. He's a fast-paced platformer, you know. The only reason that this wasn't how the classic Sonic games were to begin with is because they already thought like they were taking a big enough risk by having a fast-paced platformer of the Genesis variety. Like, the whole reason Sonic 1 was so platformy was because they thought they were taking a huge risk, and they weren't really sure people would like the speediness. So, they could have made the classic Sonic games like this, but they thought it would be too different from other platformers. And I also like how the levels aren't overly long. And there's only 2 acts, which is really good. It really sucks when, like, most of the Advanced series has 3 acts. And this is another boss that is really enraging. Again, I hate how the floor constantly slopes, so that if the floor is sloping upwards and you happen to jump when the floor is sloping upwards, then you don't jump as high as you normally would, and you don't jump as far as you normally would. And if you jump when the ground is sloping downwards, then you jump further than you'd expect, and you jump higher, I think. But the point is, the ground constantly sloping screws up your jump, and you have these weird physics where you're constantly running. And I'll show off later on that you can hold back on the control pad, and Sonic will just constantly be screeching to a stop. He won't stop. I think they did the running boss fights much better in Mushroom Hill Zone Act 2. Because there, it was you're chasing Eggman, but it's not like you were forced to be running the whole time. And I just hate that boss. Like, I hate trying to dodge the bombs that he drops. I hate how he can still drop bombs even when you've destroyed his cannon. Everything about it is annoying. But now we're in Music Planet. And this is the level where I always turn up the volume just to hear the song of Act 1. I mean, Act 2 is kind of disappointing in theme-wise, but in terms of this level, I love the music. Although, it's the kind of music where it sounds a lot better when you're actually playing through the level, and you go through the instruments, and every instrument sort of adds something to the song, like the trumpets, for example. So I feel like the song feels kind of barren without actually playing through the level and having the instruments add to it. So it's not truly good, I think. But it is the best song in the game to me. Like, in general, I don't think the soundtrack of this game is nearly as good as the next game and the previous game. Well, Advanced 3 isn't technically the next game after this. But anyways, I love the aesthetic of this place too. Like, I love the way its background looks. All pink and there's musical instruments everywhere because Eggman's crazy and wacky. You know, like, I don't know why he would waste all that time and money building this place. Or maybe it's just the magical, natural chaos energy of the world just making something crazy because there's too much magic. Oh, I hate that enemy! That is such a ridiculously placed enemy. I hate those enemies so much because they constantly throw stuff upwards, and so it's so easy to get hit by them. And I hate those black, I guess, clarinet things, because you land into the hole and you have extremely gimped horizontal momentum after you're being launched up from them. So it's very easy that you'll get launched up in one of the holes, and then you'll fall right into the hole to the right of you. So it's really annoying when there's multiple of them placed in a row, and you can't really avoid falling into them. Especially in this level. Because in this level, they're unavoidable. There's a lot of gimmicks to this level, like there's these things that you bounce off of. I love that spike, by the way. I really wish it wasn't there because it kind of broke the pace. But yeah, there's these things, which are all bouncy. And these things bounce you upwards as well. And I like the way they look. Like, I love the way this place looks in general. But I don't really like going through it. I don't feel like it's consistently fast, and look, more trampolines. Although at least you only have to bounce on them once. I think you have to... Oh, that's such cheap spike placement. Why does that spike have to be there? Like, how was I supposed to... I mean, I don't really like playing through this level that much. Some of the springs actually launch you higher than others, but there's no way to visually tell which ones launch you the highest. And that spike is so cheaply placed. And that one too. It's a good thing that I had invincibility there. I like the way the invincibility looks in this game. But yeah, there's too many gimmicks for this level that get in the way of it being fast. I mean, right here, this part isn't really very fast. This is more of a platforming area. And because I played through it multiple times, I knew how to get through it quicker. But what you'll do when you first play it, is just use those piano keys to bounce to left and right, and it takes a lot longer. And you saw the map screen earlier. Just like in Advance 1, if you beat an act, then you can revisit it at any time you want to stage select. Cheap! Cheap! That's so cheap! What a cheaply placed enemy! It's on such a tiny, tiny area in the level design. So you can't just land right beside it, and it throws something upwards, so you can get hit by that thing if you try to go over it. So the only way you can attack it without getting hurt is to somersault into it, or roll into a ball into it because you know it's coming, but then the screen crunch kicks in. But anyways, as you progress through the game, the music track in the zone select screen will change into 2 different variations, which is pretty cool. It helps make it feel like you're progressing through the game. Although I don't feel like they... Oh, that blue spring there, it doesn't launch you as high as a regular spring, which is kind of... Like, why is it even there then? There's also... The previous level had those blue turtle enemies that are like springs. And what I passed through, those ball things and floating in the sky, they're really annoying because they don't always bounce you in a reliable way. Like, they're very unpredictable. So it can be kind of annoying trying to rely on them and bouncing from one to the other to progress. Because you never know how each one's going to bounce you, and it might bounce you too far to the left or right or not far enough. But anyways, I don't think the game does the music track and the zone selection changing. I don't think that does that nearly as well as Yoshi's Island, where every time that you beat a world, the music track and the stage select will change into a completely different variation. Oh, it's another boss that I hate. This boss is really frustrating. First of all, there's... where do I even begin with this? There's spikes on the left side of every platform, which sucks because you're expected to jump onto them. And for another, the platforms are always shooting projectiles at you. And isn't it hard enough to get on them in the first place? Bosses like this constantly enrage me and get me so frazzled and frustrated that I start screwing up and making a whole bunch of stupid mistakes because I'm so angry. That's why sometimes I die stupid deaths, because they just get me so enraged. This might be the game in the franchise that I have the worst luck with. Like, I might hate the bosses of this game more than any other game in the franchise. Although there haven't been that many Sonic. Like, I've never touched the Dark Age, for example. But still. Like, it's so needlessly frustrating just getting to the boss to hit it. Why do I have to rely on these platforms? I think right there I showed off that you can use the insta-shield to attack the boss without using the platforms at all. But the insta-shield doesn't have quite enough reach. And another annoying thing, this perfectly illustrates how screwed up the physics are. Because sometimes you jump into the boss and you're sent back a little bit and you land on the platforms. But sometimes you can land on the platforms and then you get flung to the left. Why can't you just be standing still on the platforms? Like there. Because of the screwed up physics, because of the screwed up controls, it's so needlessly difficult to do what you want to do in this boss fight. Like, just landing on the platforms is a task all by itself. I get it, it's a game based around speed and running fast, so you always gotta keep running even in the boss fights. But I don't think this is fun. Like, there's so many games, like, even Sonic CD has better boss fights than this. So, we save Tails, who has been kidnapped for the first time since Sonic 2 in the Master System. How did he get kidnapped? He looks really terrible there. Like, his eyelid was completely white. Who thought that was a good idea? But, in spite of the horrible boss fights, I feel like the levels are fun and thrilling enough to be worth it, in my opinion. See you for the next part.